It's time for Geocache Talk. Whether you are at work, in the car, or wherever you are, we hope you enjoy this show about the great sport of geocaching. If you're watching live on YouTube, you can be part of the adventure tonight in the chat room and participate with others as they watch the show. If you are listening later, please give it a like and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app so that you can get all of the weekly Geocache Talk goodness. If you have not become a patron of the Geocache Talk Network, what are you waiting for? Patron levels start as low as a Bison Tube level at $3 a month. To sign up is easy. Simply go to the Geocache Talk website and click on the Become a Patron button, or go to patreon.com/Geocache Talk. Patrons now get the famous Blackout coin, invites to special events, and other really great items throughout the year. Become a patron today. Have you subscribed to FTF Magazine yet? FTF Magazine is the #1 geocaching magazine available. It is a quarterly magazine that you can be part of. Submit your geocaching milestones and adventures to be published. FTF Magazine is also interactive with puzzles to solve and the hunt to find Spartacus. If you can solve the puzzle or find Spartacus, then you will be entered in to win a special pack tag. Every new subscription, you will receive a special swag pack. Subscribing is easy. Just visit FTF's website, ftfgeo.com. Don't miss out and subscribe today.
Logwork, the creators of the fantastic logbook, made with genuine write-in-the-rain paper. The logbook's designed for the micro-containers of the present and future, geared towards the hider who'd rather go caching than doing cache maintenance. Find them at logwork.com. That's logwerk.com.
Big thanks to Derek, Baker Six Clan, for the graphics, and our new patrons, Four Cycle, Thunderstruck, and Rosebud 55112. And our featured patrons this week, Jesse, I brought on the Canadians. So I know the O Canada national anthem, but I'm not going to sing it because nobody wants to hear me sing. But our Canadian patrons are Ken, who lives in Winnipeg. We have a good representation of provinces. He's in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Hugh, he's in Penticton. Sorry, Hugh, I hope I said that right.
I don't think you did.
Penticton, British Columbia.
Sure.
Sure. Yvonne, she's in Calgary, Alberta. Jeff, New Westminster, British Columbia. Lorne, he's on the other side. He's in Toronto. He's in Ontario. Paul is retiring. Congratulations, Paul, on
no doubt.
getting to that point. He's in Prince Rupert, British Columbia. And Abe, he is in Winkler, Manitoba. So thank you to all our patrons that keep our show on the air. And thank you to all of our Canadian patrons, Canadian listeners. And welcome to tonight's show. We have a special guest tonight, Sean, who is what is your official title at HQ, Sean?
Well, I'm the head of engineering at HQ, which is basically software engineering.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you for being with us tonight.
That's my pleasure.
This will be fun. We're going to do first a little bit of news, and then we're going to jump right into the topic. So let me hit the news bumper. So a couple items of note for news. CacheFest Oklahoma is obviously going on. Cachefest.com. The store is open. And I did want to point out a couple and I'm wearing my CacheFest shirt tonight. So one item of note is that one of the items that you can purchase is the Friends of CacheFest. We've talked about that before. I do want to re-mention that again because it's very important. There are limited. All the rest of the packages are not limited as far as how many can purchase them, but there is a 75 person limit on the Friends of CacheFest. That is the special package that allows you to be a sponsor of CacheFest. It's a limited number of packages. It is capped at 75 participants, and that number is getting close. So you want to act fast, as this will sell out. And I did want to mention that last year, if you want to see because you get to design your own coin too. A lot of people loved that. They got to do that with the turtles. If anybody saw the turtles that were designed for GeoCoin Fest, and so that's something that'll be available as well. So that's available for those that get the Friends of. So keep that in mind. Keys for the Cache Fest vault are starting to populate. So keys 2 and 3 are out there in the wild and are available to be found. Hopefully, people will find them soon. There'll be others. We do that. This is our second year to do those, so we're happy to be part of that. We try to spread them out all over the country best we can. So we don't know where keys 2 and 3 are. The first one was in Washington, and it's the state, and it was found. So we're starting to get those keys out. But I really encourage people to consider coming to Cache Fest. We got to meet Sean in Cache Fest last year in Memphis. So what is your what's your sales point? I'm putting you on the spot for going to Cache Fest. What did you like about Cache Fest?
Well, I had a fantastic time in it wasn't in Oklahoma, it was in Tennessee, and so lovely Memphis. So yeah, I got to travel across the state or across the country with one of my close friends from the company, and we just did all the things we did. It was kind of a gadget theme, as I recall, and we put together some gadget caches. They had a soldering and put 3D printing, soldering, and there was a maker kind of a fest. We had so lots of that. There was we had I believe there was what are those called, the escape rooms. So and we got to go on that cruise on the Mississippi
riverboat.
So there was sort of awesome. A murder mystery kind of adventure lab thing that happened there, which was really fun. And met downtown on Beale Street, and got to experience some of that Memphis food. And it was a great trip, and I really enjoyed that.
Cool.
Everybody was there. I have this. Justin is one of the guys that I went with, and he and I have this photo of us where we're on scooters driving around the lake, getting the Where I Go cache there or whatever. And it's like we look like we are having the most fun that you've ever had. Like it's just this joyous photo or whatever. And so
that's awesome.
They shared it at one of our company meetings because it was like an example of like just having such a good time with geocaching. So
that is awesome.
Very cool.
Yes. Tony says he wants to thank you for the personal coin for your.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I'm glad I could meet you and get you one.
Yeah. Which, speaking of, I've got and this segues into tonight's talk about waymarking, but I do have. As we were talking about before, I got my pegboard back here showing all the lackey tags and other tags I've gotten, and I put them onto a board, so that was a lot of fun to do. But I got this guy. So Sean, you want to explain yourself, sir?
Yeah, that's my extraordinarily exciting tag. It's the most exciting tag of all of the tags. And that's an icon that was so first of all, like we have this thing where if you're a new lackey, you get to meet with an artist, and then they sort of create a depiction of your lackey tag. And so it's a pixel art icon that has, generally people are picking things like their hobbies or things that they really
Right.
like, and they have, they'll do all kinds of different things. Some people have like explosions behind theirs, or they have they'll be riding on a dragon or something. I don't know. So somebody's
Annie,
barbecuing. Yeah, you got Annie's with
holding
the
her
with the
sounders. Yeah. And
But
yours
mine,
is
because so I've worked for geocaching since 2004. So I'm working on my 20th year.
wow.
And I believe we started this Lackey tag thing in probably around 2005 or 2006. I think whenever the first Lackey coin came out is where it was. And so anyhow, we weren't very exciting we were just, the artist at the time, Coco was her name. She was basically like, she just picked whatever we were wearing that day and made us into tags. And it just so happens that I was wearing this shirt.
Yes.
So it's this outfit. I was.
I know, it's awesome. We didn't plan that at all.
No, I mean, I didn't expect that you were going to show the tag, but I did purposely wear the shirt, obviously. But
So you haven't changed your shirt in 20 years, is what you're telling us.
It's the same shirt. I'm kind of like Steve Jobs, I just wear like a uniform.
That's your outfit for the day, every day.
Outfit.
Yep. So I think that we had this shirt, and Brian Roth, really both love this shirt. And so I think there was a moment, like it was Brian's one of Brian's birthday parties or something. I think we ended up, I for a gift, I ended up like minting a new copy for him and I,
Nice.
so that we could have this old shirt that we had both worn to death before or whatever. And so I think these are like the last of them, but they're actually a reprinting or whatever. And so I went back into the creative studios and found the old art, and I was able to bring it out and put it in a t-shirt or whatever. And so this is literally like one of my favorite t-shirts I've ever gotten from geocaching or whatever. So it's a great shirt. Yeah.
Show them off your Waymark shirt.
It's like a pixel art, sort of the same theme that we go with the site. But anyhow, yeah, so it's a great one. And it's my Lackey tag. It's also, I use it as my icon in Slack. It's like, it's my representation. So I have this thing everywhere.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. So I'm going to read, and we don't typically do a lot of reading of things. We fly off the cuff for the most part, right, Jesse? But I do want to read because I want to get your comments and kind of get your background, Sean, on waymarking. But I kind of want to, and this may we'll get your opinion on whether you think this is a good depiction or explanation of waymarking.
Sure.
It says waymarking is a way to mark, visit, and share locations around the world using GPS coordinates. It's similar to an online scavenger hunt for all ages. Waymarking highlights interesting places such as historical buildings, statues, or natural locations. Waymarking is related to geocaching, but the main difference is that geocaches require you to find a hidden item, while waymarks are usually single location of interest. Many waymarks are historical locations where a traditional geocache would not be allowed. I like that. So, thoughts on the verbiage?
I'm probably played a role in putting that verbiage out there, but it sounds pretty accurate to me. I mean,
probably
it's basically like, it's a similar game to geocaching.
Yeah.
In fact, it was spawned from geocaching. It was created as a solution to problems that geocaching were having back in those days.
Well, that'll be good to talk about tonight.
Yeah, definitely. But it's basically a game that's similar to geocaching. I mean, you go find points in the wild and you log them. The visit is akin to a geocache find, a log.
Right.
A waymark is just like a geocache, like a virtual geocache, basically, I guess, because there's no containers in waymarking, but there are. You still go to the point. You still actually visit it, and you log there's no logbook, obviously, because there's no physical container, but there's the virtual logbook online, and you'll take a photo of yourself or your GPS or whatever, your phone, whatever, to prove that you were at the spot. And so it's basically like a similar version of to geocaching.
Yeah,
similar.
So then let's step back a moment and kind of give your background now that we've kind of explained a little bit about waymarking. So I guess let people know again how you came to Groundspeak. Is it still called Groundspeak? I mean, I always call it geocaching.com now, but
I mean, we do business as Geocaching HQ now.
Yeah.
We're still Groundspeak though under
Groundspeak or what? Yeah.
under the covers.
But
You can use either or, but like
yeah,
geocaching is what we go by.
yeah. So how did you make your way there, and then how did you get involved with waymarking?
Yeah, well, I was like basically a warehouse manager. I worked for my father for about 10 years after college.
Cool.
What's that?
Cool.
Oh.
That's cool.
Yeah, sorry. And it kind of was a dead end. It wasn't turning into anything. It wasn't something that I really wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I was trying to turn my situation around, and I didn't really know what my options were. And so I basically taught myself how to code. So I spent a lot of years like working my way into the system, and I ultimately became a website programmer. And this is like when the web is just beginning, basically.
Right.
So did websites for the company that I was working for and all that. And so I became a contractor, and I built this website that actually it doesn't exist anymore, but it was called How Many Times, which was sort of like a precursor to the like Fitbits and keeping track of your daily life, your weight, and your
wow.
And so I had this website that was sort of dynamically built similarly to the way geocaching and waymarking were built. And I just decided that, I got a couple certifications, and I was like, I'm ready to go be a coder. I'm going to find a job, and I'm going to be a coder. And so I came up with a resume, and I put it on monster.com.
Oh boy.
So we're going way back, and it was like a fishing. I just threw the resume out there and
flung it out there.
Yeah, I wasn't very proactive, and I was a little nervous about like whether I would, but anyways, anyhow, it didn't take, but I would say less than a week. And I caught the Jeremy fish, I guess you could say.
Yes.
And this is when geocaching had about 7 people working for it.
Mr. Irish, yes.
We were just getting started, really. And so Jeremy sends me an email, and he said, hey, it looks like you're looking for a job, and we're looking for somebody who has skills that are similar to yours. Would you be interested in taking a phone call? And I'm like, sure. So he and I talked, and we kind of, he went through a few of my resume bullet points, like, you did this, yes,
right.
yes. Why don't you come in? And so I came into the office and met with a couple, like Jeremy and Elias, and the David was this guy. He didn't work for us anymore, but he was the person who was working on Where I Go at the time. The first iteration of Where I Go had not come out yet.
Jesse's a big fan of the Where I Go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it was a secret project at the time that I joined the company. It was not something that we were allowed to like tell people about, because it was still in development, and it was this big idea. It was the big next thing. And so it was this sort of, and we didn't even have a name for it at the time. It was sort of the secret project. And I think the first iteration of it was called Authorware or something like that. But I think ultimately, So anyways,
Cool.
We had a conversation at the office, and there were 7 people that were working there, and it was downtown Seattle. The building doesn't exist anymore. I think it's like entirely redeveloped. It's like by like a Whole Foods or something now. So,
wow.
But anyhow, it was a place where so anyways, I had the interview, and they asked me to join, and so soon, 2 weeks later, or whatever, I had given my notice, and I'm working for the company. And the very first thing that we started, I was hired. Jeremy was the only developer at the time,
right?
And Jeremy being the CEO at the time, and the founder, obviously, if people don't necessarily know, but
sure.
So he and I were going to be the 2 developers on the geocaching side, but geocaching was having some challenges, because we had we were kind of in this space where we were growing pretty heavily, and
Right.
Jeremy had been introducing new cache types and trackables and things, like a lot of the new things.
Yeah.
And the new two of the new cache types were the virtual caches
Right.
and locationless caches.
Locationless, yeah.
And so these were cool ideas that a lot of people liked and it resonated with. But the problem was that both were causing different problems for the site.
Sure.
Locationless caches were built. I don't know. It's almost like I need to talk about waymarking first, so then I can go back and explain.
I know. That's okay. Go for it.
The connection is basically that locationless caches act like the cache itself is like a waymark category. And then when you post the waymarks, it's the logs, right? So you have a category. Let's just say you pick one like, like let's just say that this category is sit by me statues, right? So that would be the name of a cache on Geocache. It would be sit by me statues. And the idea would be people would go and log sit by me statues in the wild, and then that would just become a geocache log. And then when anytime somebody saw that, it would just be there on the logs. And so people who might want to see those statues could like see the logs. But the problem was that you can't see the photo, you can't navigate there. Like there's no coordinates, or they're difficult to get to. It like part of the fun of seeing these places was that it needed to be presented in a different way. So the really big problem though was that it was not scalable for us, because people were putting thousands of these logs on these individual caches, and we couldn't handle the load at the time because it was too much effort, or too much data or whatever. And so it was very difficult. And we didn't have good methods of paging data at the time either. So we so it was just this long page of 10,000. And so people were having a hard time pulling up the cache pages because it was just so obnoxiously slow.
Right.
This is a real problem that we were needing to fix. And so then there was the let's see. So the virtual caches was having a different problem, which was that the arbitrary nature of what constituted a virtual cache was so overwhelming for reviewers that they started becoming very frustrated with with people. That, hey, I've just put a stick in the woods. That's that's
exactly.
That's
my virtual.
Review it, right? And so all these terrible different, you got good and bad at the same time. There were great ones and there were terrible ones, but the terrible ones were becoming a problem and overwhelming the reviewers. And so they were basically ready to like revolt if we weren't going to do something about it. And so waymarking became this sort of like idea that was started to be bounced around amongst those of us at the office at that time.
Sure.
And it kind of became like a thing that I really got excited about, like this idea of we had this idea that we would create basically locationless caches and create a new site type, because what we were realizing is that geocaching itself is kind of like a waymarking category.
Sure.
Right. So I guess when we talk about waymarking is like a directory of geocaching like websites, basically. Those are categories, right? So each category is basically its own themed set of points of interest. And and so, for example, you could, a couple examples would be like, I said that earlier, when sit by me statues, right? You would, it's a collection of points that are these sit by me statues. And so if you were to go to this category, all of the points in that category are those types of places around the world. And so you can go find those things, and it's all, so you can use waymarking to find the things that you're looking for, those kind of cool points, or you can choose to play it like a game, which is that you're just getting finds, right? You're going out and finding it, or posts, I guess.
Yeah.
We can talk about it a little bit, but anyhow, you've got battlefields, you got graves of famous people, you've got McDonald's restaurants, you've got historical markers, things like this. And geocaching hypothetically could be a waymarking category. So if you're needing a visualization of what a category is, that's kind of how it works.
That's a crazy way to that's an interesting way to think about it. So couple things to point out while we were talking about that is I did want to let you know that we've got some lurkers down in New Zealand. So Gia
I'd love to hear how this Taylor Swift concert went.
Yeah, for JT Coffee and Gia down in New Zealand. So welcome, ladies. Thank you for being along for us for the ride. They say they found some new waymarking categories, so that's awesome.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So
I actually just noticed that there's like is it Maori or something sites or something like that? I think I saw that as I was looking through the old list. So I'll bet that's one that you could find down there that didn't have very many entries, but that's probably a good chance for them to get some amazing icons.
Yeah. So we're big fans of Gia and Jesse. They're great folk, and we got I love seeing them. I got to see them when I was at headquarters last year. So UDAC had a question. I know we're jumping around a little bit, but I wanted to cover this. We lost Jesse. In case people are wondering, he'll jump back on when he can, but we lost his connection, so he'll be back. But UDAC, she wants to know, has HQ ever thought of merging waymarking and adventure labs? I don't know. You ever thought about putting those two together?
I would say the answer to that question is not seriously, but the idea has definitely come up that they would potentially be compatible.
Okay.
The idea is that Adventure Labs is like also virtual locations. Like each stage of a adventure lab is basically a virtual location, and there's been thoughts that like, what if you could use a waymark for a virtual stage or an end stage or something like that, and what if you build your story using real life points from waymarking? And I don't know that it's ever out of the question. I mean, I think we have been looking for things that we could do with this great database that we have, because it's filled with amazing points and cool different ideas. And so I'm not. I would say that it's not something that we've taken seriously as an idea, but I think we've talked about it as a this could be a thing that you could do. And so, you never know what could happen. But I would say the answer is definitely we've talked about it. Oh, and look who's
with us also.
I know I've been waiting for the show, and of course now it was when my computer crashes. Right.
That's okay. Brian Roth. Wherever he is.
There's your definitive answer, but yeah, the answer is we're not. It's not something that we're planning it. But we have discussed it in the past as like it would be a hypothetical that could happen. But it's
So Brian, I'm kidding. We love Brian. There's some opportunities for crossover between Adventure Labs and Waymarks, but majors. I read these two, by the way, because we have audio. Sean, I'm always reminded we're also doing an audio podcast at the same moment. So, but so there is potential for crossover, but a major significant merge wouldn't make sense for either platform. So I follow that. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for being along with us tonight. We have talked before with Brian, Jesse, and I about doing a show about waymarking, and here we are. In fact, I reached out to Brian. I was like, Brian, who do you think would be the best? And he said, Sean's the man. So
I mean, we were talking about how I established myself with waymarking in the at the company, but it actually was my primary job pretty much almost immediately as I was hired. So from 2004 is when I was hired. I mean, I was the primary waymarking developer. And to this day, I'm pretty sure I'm like responsible for like 95% of the code on the website. Right. So
that's awesome.
I mean, until probably, I think it was probably like 2010, 2011 is when I was moved to do more than just waymarking. It was when I started doing a lot of geocaching work and building APIs, and my career started taking a broader trajectory. I ended up managing people and things like that. So it kind of and waymarking has gone through sort of a phase of like, we introduced it and it solved those initial problems. Well, I wouldn't say it solved the problems, but it improved those problems. It didn't.
Sure.
Nobody believes that it solved the virtuals problem, I think, but I would say it resolved it, because it took them away from the website. So that but I think there's still a desire for those to happen, and I think we've done our best to bring those back in the form of virtual rewards. But we've kept those like very limited, but they're still out there. Whereas locationless, I think we don't plan to bring those back, because waymarking does actually solve that problem entirely, I think. And so
because I think people don't realize, and many people do, but I think the fact that from the back end of it, some things are very difficult, whereas a lot of geocachers are like, oh, why don't we have like 50 difficulties and terrains? Well, it doesn't work like that. There's a lot of coding that would go on. It's like, why don't we have 500 cache types? Well, it doesn't just work. From a front end side of it, people are like, oh, well, what's the big deal? But from a coding standpoint, there's a lot more that would have to go into that. So
yeah, I would say that's an understatement. I mean, if we had coded this perfectly from the start, it might be a little easier to do some of those things, but and it's become progressively easier to do things as we've improved.
Yeah.
Because when we first started this, it was a hobby site that like kind of turned into something like it was a lightning in the bottle sort of moment, and it became a phenomenon, and it scaled super quickly. And we had to spend an awful lot of time taking that initial hobby code and turning it into a professional enterprise. That took years to get that right. And we had, people probably remember us having, like slow weekends where the site was dragging, and that didn't get solved until even, probably 5 or 6 years ago, I guess. But like, it's just something that it took us a while to get there. And so we've been slowly improving everything under the covers. And so now I think we're able to move in a little bit better way, but it's still some of those things are definitely not as easy to bring as one would think.
No, absolutely. And things work. I've been on the IT side of things before. And so I know a lot of people, they don't give it a second thought, but I for a site of that, of geocaching.com to be the site that it is, and, knock on wood, I mean, very few issues. I mean, it is rare for there to be an issue nowadays. I mean,
that's music to my ears.
We know about, right?
We know about. Well, sure.
I mean, as the consumer know about. Y'all know about tons of things, but we don't know about them.
But think about, Jesse, how many times have you gone
late
to geocaching.com and have the site have a problem? I mean, it's rare.
Yeah, no, it's.
I mean, that's been a job that we've worked really hard to try to get it to that state, and it's as I would say, it's not every time I talk about pager duty or something going wrong with the site. It's like a guarantee that it's going to wake me up at 4 a.m. that I got to deal with. So
I hear you.
I'm not going to jinx anything on wood here, because that's always happens. Yeah, but
hey, so since you're kind of responsible for the site, and kind of wondered what the thought process behind this, but waymarking and geocaching are kind of parallel games in a sense, right? They're all owned by Geocache and use the same user account and everything else. And I don't know if we've touched on it tonight. We talked about it a little bit before the show, but waymarking definitely has a specific look that y'all picked for it. And geocaching kind of went through the big update, modernizing the site, and waymarking has kind of kept that retro look. What's kind of the thought process behind running those parallel games and then it having just like a really, really different look to it?
I mean, the truth of the matter is that waymarking is not the same level of priority for the company as geocaching is. So it's fortunate that that it looks retro to people rather than dated, I guess. But it's
yeah, a lot of people love it. I love the look, but that's just me, maybe. Well,
it's kind of like I don't know, bell bottoms or something, because like back in the day they were cool, and then they came back and they're cool again. It's like the pixel art is sort of hitting again. People are interested in that, and so it feels borderline modern because it's sort of got that retro kind of feel to it. But it never changed. And I think it's just because we don't put the resources on it the way that we do for the geocaching side, because that is that's the company's top priority. Sure. Adventure Lab is a top priority as well at this point.
Right. We've seen a lot of growth. For that, for sure.
Well, Jesse and I we want to bring back the bell bottom. And what other looks do we want, Jesse? You want to come back?
Gary's going through the bell bottoms like 3 times now, so he's
it's like the mullet's kind of the thing right now, right? There's the mullet.
Right. So we want to make waymarking for some we want waymarking to be cool again. Now some people, I guess we're sort of introducing it tonight. Retro Gaming Gal says she never heard of it, but it sounds like so much fun. I found it to be fun, and we'll get more into that here in a moment.
Yeah. Before we move that far, because I got a couple questions before we get to the other ones.
Yeah.
So, and you don't have to know numbers if you don't know numbers, right? That might not be your side of the house. We always bug Brian about them, but do you know, like, there's 3 million geocachers or whatever now? There's some astronomical number that's out there. Do you have any idea of how many people are actively playing the waymarking game specifically?
I don't have the specific numbers, but it's a lot less. Significantly less. It kind of went through a phase of ramping up and becoming kind of bigger, and then it sort of when our priorities changed to be much more focused on Adventure Labs and geocaching, I think that the audience kind of went back with it. Mm-hmm. I will say that Cashly, do you know Nick?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
we're from Cashly. He's created an app called Waymarkly.
Yeah.
And since that, there you go.
We've got it.
And since that app has been released, we've definitely seen a surge of interest. So it's brought some people back into the fold. So it's and it's there's a small percentage of lackeys that really enjoy the game, and so it's probably I would say it's not. It's significantly less. Let's just say that.
So, because I know we're going to get in the nuts and bolts of it here in a second, but I'm trying to set the stage for people we've got some pretty hardcore geocachers in here, and some people are just hearing about it, that hopefully they may take this and go check it out and find a new part of the game they like. We get in the nuts and bolts of it. So with the geocaching side, I don't want to call it sides because it's a parallel game, but geocaching is umbrella. There's tons of places, because remember, a lot of us are stat nerds, right? I mean, we love numbers and everything else. There's geocaching stats everywhere, like on the site. There's tons of them, and obviously Project GC, things like that. And there's other websites that people use. Is there anything that kind of leaderboards or to track the waymarking? Is there anything like that for waymarking?
There is. And there's actually, so waymarking has kind of a special, there are typical statistics that you see that are very similar to geocaching. Like, so if you were to go to your profile on the waymarking website, and you can use your same geocaching credentials to log into waymarking, your premium geocaching account works as a premium waymarking account. So they are compatible in that regard. Same with Wherigo, like the premium membership works for everything. So, all of there are premium features on waymarking, and that are also part of your geocaching premium membership. But in the profile page, there's a whole bunch of tabs that you can kind of look at, and there's statistics, and you can see in the statistics tab that they have very similar types of statistics as geocaching has. It's got it's even got the different charts and graphs and things like that. It's a little bit like less, and you can also see the chart based on waymarks posted versus waymarks visited. And then, but I should mention that I think that while people do care about their counts, and in the same way that they do with geocaching, the thing that seems to be the real hit for people who are waymarkers is what we have is called the category grid. And there's basically it's kind of like a bingo card, like with thousands of squares, basically. They like, I don't know if it's 1,000, but like, yeah, it might be. But anyways, there's thousands of categories. So the category grid, basically what people do is if they find a single waymark in a category, they will fill out one of the category icons in their grid. And so what people will do is they'll try to find, when they go on trips, waymarks that fit in the different categories, and such that they can
I'm gonna show mine. It's sadly
that's
not very good.
Interesting. I like that take on I never really thought about it that way, even though I knew that was there. That's an interesting take, and that's something that'll get, like there's people on the geocaching side that will drive many, many states for a Jasmer cache or, to fill up their fizzy grid. Well, this is kind of like that same type of stat that people chase, but there's so many more of them.
So people try to get bingos, right? Like they'll try to get like a line across the way, or they'll try to get a line like vertically. And it's not easy. It's very difficult. I would have you can you put that back up on the screen?
Yeah.
And in the top of that screen, can you type the name Bruce S?
Oh, sure. By the way, a couple of people in our chat room,
I'll
Jesse,
pull a couple of those up while you're doing
pull those up while I'm sharing my screen again.
Is there a waymarking app for Android?
See, no, now that is the only problem.
I know Nick doesn't build for Android.
Nick doesn't build yeah.
Android, yep. So one of the big problems with waymarking is it is a web related game still, mostly, if you don't use Cachely or Waymarkly.
Sure.
It's not designed to be a very easy mobile friendly site either. So there is some challenge for people who are Android users, and I happen to be one, so it's not easy for me either. So yeah, type Bruce S, one word, and then check out this person's grid.
Yeah, there we go. Now there's a person who spent some time waymarking.
Well, we have a few people in the comments. I'm just pulling them up as we go, but they have been doing it for quite a long time.
Yep. So
2005.
Bruce is no longer with us. Bruce is he's one of the original administrators for waymarking. He became a passionate waymarker. He found his 5,000th geocache and then decided that he's not doing it anymore, and he's only going to do waymarking.
Oh, wow.
And so he became one of the more prominent waymark posters. Wow. So person so a hider is a poster on the waymarking world.
That makes sense.
And sure. In the beginning, people preferred posting. Like there was more clout with posting new waymarks. And I don't know that that's still the same as it was because Waymarkly is primarily a visiting app. But posting the waymarks used to be what people like valued in terms of this is how you get clout on the site. And so Bruce was a prominent waymark poster. And if you happen to live in Missouri, you are in for a treat because that entire state is fully waymarked to a level that other states are not. So he was a big history buff and was in charge of a lot of different categories. But he also was an amazing guy. So and so I feel like I like to talk about him because he did pass away. He had cancer but he was a good friend and the best ambassador for the game. So great guy. But anyways, yeah.
That's really
Can we kind of walk through for people, and we can use it in geocaching terms, right? Like you just did. I think that was perfect. A poster is the person that hid the cache, right?
Yeah.
So how does the process compare to like posting a cache, reviewer, who checks all those things? Does an owner how does it compare to like geocaching?
Yeah, great question. That's a great helpful question. Well, geocaching actually obviously has like reviewers, and there are like many hundreds of them that are like volunteers that participate in this, and they're actually run. We actually have a team at the company that like kind of wrangles them all together, and we have interactions with them, and we have meetings and we discuss. Waymarking is much more automated in that regard. And even though it also has reviewers, every single category has a team of reviewers that volunteer to be reviewers for that category. But the site administers them itself. So we don't actually do, we don't control that at all. The site kind of runs that on its own. And we do have an administrator that works like that kind of smooths out the edges, the rough edges when it comes to that process, and recruits new people in places that are having trouble and things like that. But that does happen. So, but when you post a waymark, I mean, you basically you go through the category list and you find a category that's interesting, and then you note that you have, hey, that I've got one of those in my neighborhood. I'm gonna post this this sit by me statue in that park that's right by my house. And so you would basically, just like you would with geocaching, you would go to the sort of the on the homepage, there's a post a waymark, or you could do it directly from the category itself. And you would post that waymark. It basically has a whole list of things that you would, like it's asking for the data, and it wants you to include pictures, and it gives you some rules about how you would do it. And then there's a review process. And so when you submit it, it goes to that team of reviewers for that category. We call them category managers, and those category managers will review your waymark over time. And some are better at doing it quickly, and some are less good. It depends on how closely people are paying attention at a given moment. But generally, we get them all reviewed over an amount of time. And then once it's reviewed, and it gets released into the directory, and then it's something that other people can go and visit at that point. So very similar to a geocache. It's just a much more automated back behind. The site controls it itself.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Gary.
I just want to say real fast that for those that are not familiar yet or just starting to learn about, one of the things I love, and we'll talk about some of the things, some of these items in a little bit, but I love the categories. There are some fabulous. One of the categories I found, just to give a hint as to when we get to that section discussion, but homemade tombstones. There's a whole plethora,
wild category, right,
of homemade tombstones out there.
I've never heard of that one. That's a great one.
Yeah, that it's a really, really cool. I mean, to look at, and and so photos obviously are key. But go ahead, Jesse. You had some other thoughts on this.
We'll never hit everything on waymarking tonight. So I want to give enough out there for people to understand what they're getting into, and I want people to hopefully go out and try it. So
I agree.
So you find something, you post it, the reviewer team in geocaching terms goes over, it gets to a category, then somebody else can go find it. Are there ALRs like there are with virtuals and labs right now, or adventures right now? Do people have to post a photo? Do people have to answer a question? Is there an option for that, or is it just honor system?
Generally, the category managers create the criteria for their own categories, but in most cases there aren't any like virtual questions to answer, or there's not a whole lot of proof that of your mostly they just want you to post a photo or just to prove that you were there. I haven't seen too many. There's a few that are a little bit puzzly that have their anomalies, that they're a little different than others. And so it's a case by case basis, I think, but I think most of them are pretty basic. You just go to the spot, you post a photo, and then you get it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not too difficult.
So here's where I think, and because I know once we get into categories, we're never getting off that. We're going to run out of time for that tonight.
We'll run out of time, yeah.
But waymarking has something that's a little different that I think the geocaching side has tried to play with a little bit with leaderboards and stuff, but haven't really done it. Waymarking also has groups and scavenger hunts too, right? There's kind of a game within the game.
Yeah, it's good that you brought those up. The scavenger hunts is kind of a particularly that's the way that I think that is the most fun to do waymarking personally. I think it's fun to, especially if you go on a trip to a new city that you've never been to before. I think it's really fun to generate a scavenger hunt. Basically what it does is you select an area that you're going to be in that you would like to create a radius around, and then it will randomly pick waymarks in that radius, and then create sort of a bingo style grid, sort of similar to this category icon grid, but it's with individual waymarks.
Cool.
And then the idea is that you would go and find those waymarks, and as you knock each one of them out, you kind of complete the grid. And so you can see, so they're basically there's a few spots on the site where you can look at the categories, and it'll show you
who can do that scavenger hunt? Just the person who posted it, or can you open it to the public?
I believe you can open it. I don't know how often that happens, but you can create one and then you can immediately start doing it yourself. Or you can create one, it has some timings involved with it, and then you can invite others to join you, and then you can do a race to see who.
I like that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of fun things, but what's really interesting is if you go to a city you've never been to before, it will pull up the most random things that you would never ever dream to go visit in that city. And so it's like the most unique take on exploring a new city. And what's so interesting about it is that you go to these places that are like, some of them are just so silly, like that you would be going, I'm going to Memphis so that I can go see this statue.
Right.
But it's like, when you get to the statue, and even though you've seen a photo of it and you get to that statue, it's kind of a joyous moment in the same way that finding a geocache is.
Yeah.
In that it's about like, it's like you see that photo of the place on the site, and then you get to the real life context of that photo, and then it's like all of a sudden it matches, and you're like, oh, that's how it lives in the land, lays in the land, right? And so it just opens up this like, wow, that's not how I expected it to be. It's very cool. And so it just takes you on this like kind of weird, like eclectic view of a city. And the thing is you can also like if you generate your random ones and they just are terrible, you can just regenerate until you get a list that's like acceptable. And then you can do that again. And so I have seen at least one person has. So there's a scavenger hunt grid, which is filled with like, I think it's like 100 waymarks in 100-mile radius is like the hardest one.
Right.
And then there's like a 5-mile radius and 5 waymarks is the easiest one. But the grid goes from, an amount of like, anyways, there's at least one person who's knocked out the entire grid. Like they've done a scavenger hunt all the way through for every single.
Wow.
And so there are definitely some people who are really into this and crazy. And as you saw, Bruce was with the category grid. He was very into that.
Right. Did you see this, Jesse? Talk about a crossover. I don't know how this would even work, but Tyrone Shoelaces, thanks for being on again tonight, my friend. You can open a scavenger hunt. There is a challenge cache in Warren, Pennsylvania, where you have to first complete a percentage of the scavenger hunt.
That would be a pre-moratorium challenge, but for sure. But that's awesome. I mean, like, if I get anywhere close to that, I'm going to sign it. I'm going to sign that challenge, and I would immediately go do whatever it takes for that. But
isn't that cool?
I think this is fascinating. One, the challenge cache like that is fascinating. The old ones like that. But two, that you can. So that's extremely interactive, and I know the groups is a section on there too. But if you had people in your local area, like a caching group, and you were looking to find and go out and do some fun for a weekend or a week, or had a monthly challenge, that seems like a great thing to do for.
It's also it's quite compatible with geocaching also, because you're already out in the woods going and finding geocaches, and like often there's geocaches and waymarks in the general area, so you can kind of, if you figure out how to plan it well, you can go and do both things, and so it just kind of like it adds places that you can go find the things to enhance the game experience for both. Similar to what
they overlap for sure. I mean, they're parallel, but I really do see how they can overlap.
Yeah, they definitely are compatible.
Yeah.
I've looked at it. I don't waymark a lot, but I'm going to go check into it. I've looked at it recently just because of the benchmarks that are on there. Because I completely understand why we don't have benchmarks as part of it. I got that part. That makes perfect sense to me, but there's still miss some benchmarks because I went and found them. I like doing them. So I like it because there's now a way for me to go and find benchmarks again.
Yep.
and it won't mess up anything because we put the kibosh on that on the geocaching side. So if nothing else, it'd be fun just for that.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a passion about benchmarks, the site Waymarking has a lot of benchmarks. I think the big difference between the geocaching benchmarks and waymarking benchmarks is that the waymarking benchmarks were all placed by users finding them in the wild, whereas
Right.
the geocaching benchmarks were just a list that we had that we just populated the database with, and so they just existed. But this is like actually crowdsourced, like that waymarkers found these, and they probably found them when they were geocaching and then added waymarking, but so it's kind of that way, I guess. But
that's cool.
So, but it is kind of like part of the, I guess we felt not too bad about taking benchmarks away, because there is actually a place for people who like benchmarks to still play a game that is benchmark related. So
a couple things I want to point out. Drusilla with us tonight. Thank you. She mentioned she's a manager of 5 categories, so that's really cool. And
you got some people pretty involved. We got, I'll flash through a couple that we kind of put up earlier too, but
go for it.
1,007 grid spaces filled. So they may be getting back into it. That sounds awesome.
Yep.
And Drusilla, of course, she's been doing it since 2005. And Gia said there's 1,130 different categories. That's insane. First of all,
that's cool.
That's a big fizzy grid.
That is a big fizzy grid.
Do posters get an email when someone logs a waymark? So if some of these people go out and they start posting waymarks, does it work like geocaching does?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, because we just had a discussion on earth caches, and the more of those you own, it really ramps up the number of emails you get to correspond to. So I think that would be similar. Before anybody goes out and posts 500, waymarks tomorrow,
waymarks.
There's an interactive component of that, just like owning a real geocache or a traditional geocache. I mean, it's going to be,
right. The posting will definitely create a situation where somebody's going to have to review your post, but the visits, not necessarily. Like, they'll still get the visit when their waymark gets visited. They'll get an email for that.
That's it's very similar to geocaching. I mean, it really is the way it'd be played with different process, but it's also a very different game. I mean, kind of how you're explaining the category is a reverse, kind of like a location list. That makes sense to me. I've never thought about it that way before, but you're going out to look for something that somebody else created in different location. Yeah, that's.
Yep. I mean, that was exactly what it was. They also, in fact, I believe we started with like 100 actual locationless caches, and we populated the database with those actual caches as waymark categories. And then we allowed the people who created those initially to be the category managers in the beginning. And so those are the people who started off the site. Like, we kickstarted it with actual locationless caches. And so some of the people that were in that initial group are still participating with waymarking today, and we have at least a couple people who have I've seen. I think it's like 65,000 waymarks reviewed is like the number that I've seen a couple people have done. So
wow,
and obviously you've seen that there's more than 1 million waymarks that are placed out there in the world already. So you see that on the front page. We had this sort of countdown at the office where we were, Brian and myself were always like so excited about that million waymark mark, because that to me was sort of like such a huge, like, for me personally, it was a personal milestone seeing this site that I had spent my whole career building for so long achieve this goal. And it was funny because Brian and I had decided that we were going to go to the very first waymark for to commemorate the experience.
How can you find?
It was a McDonald's. It was a McDonald's. The first waymark was a McDonald's,
which is funny because
it was sort of a dumb idea from our side in hindsight. But people, anyways, we went to go find that one, and it wasn't there. It had been changed into a Chase Bank, and so. It's my waymark, and so I actually had that moment where I discovered it doesn't exist anymore. So I actually had to archive it on the day that we hit the 1 million. So it was so sad.
It's kind of like the first Starbucks is gone. So
Yeah, it's
parking
not everything.
lot.
Things don't last forever, and so
No, but that's well, the first geocache is not there. Now there's something there, but
yeah,
I mean, there's a
maybe we need to put an original stash
plaque.
type plaque.
That's right. Yeah,
Get on that, Brian. We need a plaque in the parking lot for the first wave.
I kind of like that idea. If there was some way to do it, I guess. But
that would be cool.
So somebody jumped on and they asked, "Is this an app or just a web page?" I think the web page is what they're talking about.
Yeah,
it was a little broken up, but I just use that as an opportunity to repeat. Waymarking.com is where you go.
Yeah,
it's its own site, same sign in as geocaching.com.
Yep.
If you happen to be lucky enough to be an Apple user or an iOS user,
exactly.
then Waymarkly is the app that you can use to do this. Otherwise, you would just do it on waymarking.com on your phone, right?
Yes, that is the way to do it, and it is not. It's not. Admittedly, it's not the greatest mobile experience for those of us with Android devices. And I don't know. Someday I'm gonna sit down in a 10% project type space, and I'm gonna fix it. But it will require some like me offloading time of my own personal time to fix that probably. But it's I do try to get in every year with at least a little bit of like dev time dedicated to waymarking. And so there's usually like one or two smallish, but maybe bigger, depending on the year, projects that will like increase it, update it and improve it. So there's probably a moment where I will do some things this year as well. But I'm a busy guy though too. So I am responsible for all of geocaching stuff. So it's a little bit of it's a stretch for me to be able to do too much. But
no, I hear you. Brian thinks a good idea would be sort of like the traveling can of beans. You could have the bronze original cheeseburger. You could bring to events. That'd be funny with whatever the way, because waymarking has like a code. Like they do, don't they? They have to have a code.
It does, yeah. Like, well, it was WM1 was the first way.
Okay, so you could
you can actually type that, and you can type that into the search, I believe, and it will bring back the actual.
Oh
location.
wow! I could try that.
WM1. So what would, and this is kind of a question. Of course, Brian's in here too, so he's going to hear it. But,
downtown Seattle, 6th Avenue.
HQ like to see with one? What would HQ like to see with waymarking? Would they like to see a big resurgence? Would they like to see people kind of keep where it is? Because you don't have time to develop to really do much with it. What would HQ ultimately like to see either now or long term with waymarking?
That's a good question. I don't know that I would be able to speak for everybody at HQ. I would only be able to speak for myself. And of course, I would love to see it have a resurgence. I think that the more people that would do something with it, the more likely that it would get some love, I think. But at the same time, I don't want to press it so hard that people jump off of the geocaching and adventure labs stuff as well, because I think those are obvious priorities these days. But I will say that like waymarking is part of the premium prop for us, and so if people join waymarking, I mean, it's gonna be good for everybody, for all the people who are premiums, because that is. There are premium. So, by the way, being a category owner or SARP manager is a premium feature. So if you want to run a category, you would have to be a premium user to do so. But I don't think you need to be a premium to do the grid or to probably everybody that watches your show probably is premium, is my guess. But
we get a lot of new people too. So
we get new, but you're right.
A lot of brand new users that'll come on and get it. But a lot of the people are. I mean, I can't even remember. It took me 10 days or something, I don't know, to figure out. Premium is where I go, and never left. So I forget that people aren't premium sometimes.
Yeah, Jess and I forget what it's like.
People don't necessarily realize that the premium membership at geocaching does actually like load you up with all kinds of like perks, because these other sites are all baked into that value. So if you are a premium member, I mean, you don't have to fork over any more money. I do think that Waymarkly costs because that's a third party site, so you would have to probably pay. I think it's $5. I think is how much.
Yeah, but if you're an iOS user,
it's worth it. It's
worth it.
No, definitely, and it supports
free waymarks. It's worth it. I mean, it's,
and it's not. I don't even know. I don't know that. I don't think it's a subscription. I think it's just a one time.
No,
thing.
Just a one time.
One time. Yeah.
One thing we do though for Nick, he's a big supporter of ours, is that we try to, at least once a year, we try to give him tips for the developer. So we try to give him a little bit extra because like Jesse and I, we spent the easy money for Cashly and Waymarkly long ago. Not Waymarkly long ago, but so we try to remember, and we try to encourage everyone that has it to, remember the developer. He's still trying to develop, and so that's important. But
so how would you? I know we're going to run out of time. I could talk about this for a long time. It's an exciting new thing for me, or whatever. But how would you? I guess kind of two questions. How would you recommend people, if they haven't really been into it, or if they want to get back into it, where should they start? So go find some tomorrow, whatever. And then if people are getting excited about this and they want to spread the word, again, what's that message, right? At an event or whatever else. So I know it's kind of a loaded 2-part question, but
I mean, I would say that like visiting a Waymark is the best way to start. So understanding like what am I going after? And so probably even just beginning with a search of your location at from the homepage will probably deliver you a list of the Waymarks that are closest to you. It's Waymarking I'm giving you all the flaws with the site now, but Waymarking doesn't have the big map that geocaching does, and that I think is a dream to build something like that, so that it would be more it would just be a better site experience if that were there. But it is what it is, and so the search Waymarking, it used to be more of a list focused service, right? We just want the list of the Waymarks, and then you go and find them, we didn't really think about it from the map perspective the way that we did. The way that we do our sites these days or whatever. And so there is a map. It's just a very small map on the right. And so you'll have to deal with some of those issues with it. And actually,
pretty good.
There you go. Nick's, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. Nick's got
cool. His app is the way to do it for sure right now. But I will say that like going to the homepage and just typing your location and seeing what's around you, that's the way to start. And then just sort of get a feel for like the different categories. And like I would definitely like visit your profile and see all the different statistics and
that's cool.
Kind of work through how all that is. And the category grid is particularly key, I would say, because that's the way most people who Waymark like seriously, like that's what they key in on. I would wait on I don't know if I would jump into scavenger hunts immediately. If you're new, I would just go find a couple. But eventually you'll start getting an understanding of how things are. And then you can start like thinking about posting, which I think is that's where there's a feel of ownership. Cause you're the person who puts that spot in there. And then it's almost like, it's got like a Foursquare kind of feel to it. Like the mayor of the spot, it's kind of gives you that feel when you own that you're in, and so some people sort of view it like a territorial, that's part of my empire,
right?
And it's funny because I think this feature is currently broken, but there used to be a feature that worked with Google Earth that was it actually was called the Waymarking footprint, and what it did is it basically drew a line around all of your posted Waymarks, and so it'd show literally on the world like what you'd quote conquered in terms of the territory.
I like that.
And it would be colored based on how densely populated that area is with the Waymarks that you posted, right? So somebody who finds in Seattle like 100 or 1,000 Waymarks would have a very red, very small dot of red, and somebody who found 2 would have a green space, right? But if you go across the whole United States, it would be a little bit like the color would get greener as you go or whatever. But unless you're Bruce S, and Bruce S would have red and everything.
Right.
He was red everywhere. So
that's awesome that he did that.
Well, I'm going to have to go out and find some now. I'm lucky enough that I have Waymarkly, so it makes it a lot easier, but I'm going to go play with it a little bit.
It's really cool. I know, and we're running out of time, but I did want to mention for people, because they're like, well, when would I even do this? And what I found for me, my experience was, we were in downtown Santa Fe, and we were doing some geocaches in this particular, near this church. And we were hanging out in that area. And we were doing, Susan and I were doing, like I said, we're doing the geocaches, but this is before Adventure Labs. But what was cool was we were in that area. And so I was like, what else can I do? I looked for benchmarks. I found some benchmarks. That was really cool. Then I was like, well, I'm going to pull up Waymarkly. I'm going to look. And what happened was that I was able to find some waymarks in that square that was the church, around the church. So, but by doing that, I was able to learn even more, because we'd gone through the church and we'd gone through and read most of all the signs. But even on top of that, waymarking enhanced the entire experience, because there was information in the waymarks that I did not know, because I was, we're history buffs, so we were looking at the history of this little area. And for me, one thing that I want to try to do more of is, when I am in a spot, pull up waymarks and look and see what waymarks are in that spot, because you can really enhance whatever you're doing, whether it's geology or in my case, I was looking into a history type area. So I'm thinking that that's one aspect of waymarking that I think people could really kind of get back into and embrace.
Yeah, I mean, I think because waymarking's the app experience is great in Cachely or in Waymarkly, obviously. Yeah. But if you are limited to just having the website, I do agree that that's your way to go. One thing about waymarking that's kind of good, and because of, even though that situation happens, is that because you're not looking for hidden things, it's a little bit easier to find. So you know what you're looking for. So once you're in that general area, if it's near, you're gonna find it, and so it won't be that hard to find those waymarks in that area. So it's just, you just have to get like 3 or 4 kind of like, I know I'm looking for a Sit By Me statue, I'm looking for a McDonald's, and I'm looking for a historical marker, and then you just, and sometimes if it's a well waymarked area, you might even be able to say, I'll bet that's waymarked, because that just seems like one of those things that's categorized a certain way. One thing that's also interesting in waymarking is that lots of different points actually qualify to be categories, different types of categories.
Oh, okay.
And in the early years of waymarking, what people were doing almost as a game was they were trying to figure out how many categories that post would fit into, and then they would literally post it like 7 or 8 times per category. But the difference is that they would write it up in the context of the category that it fit, right? So if it's a historical marker, well, then you talk about it as a historical marker. But if it's a battlefield, you write it up as a battlefield. But then when the search pops, you get kind of a whole bunch of waymarks for free, because there's like 7 of them that are literally the same point, but they're just different categories. And so there's, some people thought that was a fun game to see, like, what's the maximum number of same waymarks that you could post or find that would be the exact same spot, but you get credit for 7 of them or whatever.
Wow.
And so that was a thing that was kind of, in the day, it was kind of a thing that was happening. And we were going to try to write code that would sort of like take that consideration, and maybe even display them as the same point, but that ended up not happening because it was a big project.
But we need to do this again, Jesse.
Well, here's what I want to do.
We have Sean back to talk about this.
I have a deeper discussion, but Gary and I are going to go back, and hopefully some people listen to and dig into this for a little while, so we can get a little knowledge, so then we can actually ask good questions and know where it's going, because
you can tell me the bugs that I need to fix.
No.
Well, I mean, hey, we always know there's always bugs, right? But
there's always something. There's always an enhancement.
The idea, and I want to look into it more, the scavenger hunts and groups, and because I know, like with the leaderboard, there's development, everything that goes in the leaderboard, and we've seen that kind of coming alive. And many of us hope that eventually you're going to be able to like pick a group, set challenges. Well, you can do that in waymarking. It sounds like now there's categories you can set things or whatever, group challenges. So I think there's a lot of possibilities there, and I don't even know enough to be able to ask past the basic at this point. Sure, I've only done basic things, found them and posted one myself, and that's it ever. So I want to dig into it. I know Gary does too, because anytime we find a new thing, we're just going to dig into it and see who can know the most about it, right? So that's kind of the nerdy stuff we do.
Right. So this is the Waymarking 101 episode.
Yes.
It's Waymarking 201 next
we'll
time.
Do a 201. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, you can always bring me to talk about anything.
That's awesome.
It's all engineering for me. But I love this subject. This is a high one of my favorite things to talk about, obviously. So
last item, Streck wants to know.
Said he can't find a spot to upload the pictures. I'm assuming he's meaning on the website when you're posting I don't know how to say that. I don't know the term, but
when you're posting.
You find one.
If you find one, it should be you go to the Waymark that you're going to you're going to the Waymark that you found, and then you would click on the visit Waymark, it says post log or visit Waymark. And then as you post the log first, and then I believe that you'll have it should give you the option to upload the image after you get that. I'll do a little bit of a test and see.
Somebody's saying that when you're viewing your visit, there's a box on the right-hand side to upload the pic. So it should be on there somewhere.
Okay, so as soon as you log the visit, it takes you to hey, you've successfully recorded your visit, and then underneath there's a link that says upload image for this visit.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
and
cool.
So then you'll be able to do that, and then I think you can do multiple that way. So it's a little again, it's an older site. It's a little wonky, but that's you'll develop you'll get in the swing of how it all works, and then you'll be fine with it.
Yeah.
All right, Gary, we got to go back and do some research now. So we'll have to think of a challenge. First one to 1,000 finds or whatever. Or
we got to. Yeah, we'll have to come over
with each other, and then we can put those challenges out to the audience too. Once we have any clue what we're talking about, so this will be fun.
Yeah, GTN. We're gonna
make a game out. We're gonna make a game out of challenging everybody to do this. So
we will. Well, again, Sean, thank you so much. It was great meeting you last year in Memphis, and I appreciate so much you being on tonight to talk waymarking. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I had a great time. That's very fun, and anytime you want to bring me back, I'd be honored. It'd be great.
Awesome, thank you, sir. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see everybody soon. And we've got Puzzle Talk will be up soon, and we'll have a challenge talk in a week. So more the March shows will be coming up. So until then. Good night, everybody. We'll see y'all later.
May your finds be many and your DNFs be few. May the terrain and difficulty both be less than 2. Whatever it is you're looking for, may it find its way to you. And may we all meet again.
Folks, we hope you've enjoyed the show tonight. Please email us your comment at geocachetalk@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The show can be found on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, or Spotify, as well as at the Geocache Talk website. Don't forget to click that subscribe button below and ring that bell notification so that you can see and hear the show on a weekly basis. And tell your friends about the show. Get them involved with us in the chat room. And until next week, don't just talk about geocaching, go geocaching.